Should you go local or virtual for your wholesale real estate investing business? It's Rick Ginn here, and today we are going to attack if you should do it locally or virtually or a combo of both. I see this as a very common question, and I'm going to show you what I do in my business. And if you stay to the end, I promise you, I'll give you a recommendation and I'm going to ask you a few questions. But before we get into it, do me a favor, smash that like button, hit that subscribe button to continue to receive the absolute best information on wholesaling today. So let's talk about it. Everybody, unless you've been hiding under a rock, everybody talks about virtual real estate investing, aka wholesaling. And all that means is maybe you're in a market that is super saturated, or you're in like a major county, LA County, Manhattan, New York, something like that, Miami, and you want to stay there, but you can't make the numbers work. So you look in this thing they call virtual wholesaling. And virtual is exactly what it says it is. It means you're basically doing wholesaling while you live in Miami or LA. Maybe you're going to Michigan or Ohio or whatever market. Maybe it's Tennessee, and you find a market and you decide to do it that way. And you kind of get the best of both worlds because you get to live in the place that you want, and then you can do real estate investing from a distance. And I'm here to tell you, they both work, and there's really no debate. So here's how we have to start off this conversation. I have to ask you a question. You have to decide, or you have to understand the market that you live in. So if you are in a major metropolitan area, I'll give you a couple examples and you guys can reverse engineer. Los Angeles, Miami, New York City. I mean, deep major ones. Honestly, they've been around for a long time. The appreciation's through the roof, and the average price points are close to $1 million or higher. Guys, that's going to be a tough starting point if you're starting out wholesaling, because it's really the market stacked up against you. And for that reason alone, if you just say, hey, I don't want to move, you can move. And you decide, hey, I want to do it virtually, then you can do that. But here's what I want to do. I'm going to run through the pros and cons of doing virtual wholesaling, and I'm going to run through doing it local. And then at the end, I'll show you what I think you should do, but you've got to answer a couple key questions with it. So let's start with local, because it's kind of the easy one. So let's talk about all the pros of doing local. The number one, and this is the fundamentals of real estate investing, especially wholesaling. Local, the biggest pro is you know your local market. For God's sakes, you grew up there. You either went to a school there, you were raised there by your parents, whatever it is. And any place that you've lived for 2 years more, maybe even a year or more, you have the upper hand because you know the market. You know what an average house should get per square foot. You know the good neighborhoods. You know the bad neighborhoods. This reason alone is why real estate is hard to scale, because all markets are local. So based on that information, local is king if you live there and you want to do it, as long as you're not in one of these major LA counties like LA, Miami, New York City. And I'm not saying you can't do it in those. I'm just saying the odds are stacked against you in doing that. The second pro of doing local is speed. You can move very fast. Somebody can call you, you call them, you can set an appointment in 20 minutes, look at the house, having them offer right there on the spot. You can do multiple follow-ups. You're there for inspections. You're there to take pictures. You're there to bring the cash buyers in. It makes this process much simpler. The third advantage is what I call belly to belly. And that's whenever you can meet with a seller face to face. Whenever you can meet with them face to face, you have a huge advantage. Why? Because 70% of all communication is nonverbal. It's the eyes. Are you smiling? What's your tonality? What's the speed of your conversation? Are you looking down? Are you looking up? Are you stressed? Are you sweating? People wear their emotions on their sleeves. And for that reason, since motivated sellers is nothing more than an emotional knee-jerk reaction, is if you're there in person, you have the utmost advantage. Now, can you find them on the phone? Yeah, it's a little bit more challenging. Whenever you're face-to-face, you will make significantly more money on your deal. You're going to have higher profits. And keep in mind, when you meet your cash buyers, you will probably get a higher purchase price. For that reason alone, any type of belly-belly interaction will make you superior. That's why a local market really, really rules. So also keep in mind, whenever you're local, you have more options. You can do a double closing much easier. Assignments, obviously. You can bring in like another cash partner. You can even bring in a cash buyer of a property you're scared to put under contract because the numbers are too tight, and you can dare to cross that threshold, maybe just make $3,000 to $5,000. Very hard to do remotely, only because you're local, because you can get away with it, because your speed, you meet people face to face. It's really, really easy. And the last advantage is your cash buyers list. It's much more customizable. You can handpick your cash buyers. You can tell if they know the area, you know the price points, and for this reason alone, it's going to give you a larger spread. Now, those are all the pros of being local. Let's talk about the cons. The problem is if you're in a major metropolitan area, you could have a lot of competition, aka saturation. I wouldn't let that scare you alone, because you're going to have competition everywhere you go. You can't avoid it. So for that reason, if you're in those major markets, I understand why you would look virtually on it. The second thing is local. You got to deal with like the real estate agents. And if you have a problem with a real estate agent, they can make your life difficult. Although I don't run into them a ton wholesaling, but if you do this business long enough, you do have to deal with real estate agents. Hopefully more when you're selling the property to a cash buyer, as opposed to dealing with the homeowner, because most homeowners in the wholesaling community don't want to deal with realtors. That's why they contact wholesalers like myself and you. The next part of it is one of the biggest cons of your local market is if you're one of those markets where the average median price is crazy. You know, some of them are in excess of $1 million. Guys, it's really hard to start this business with no money into it. That's why we all get into wholesaling, because we minimize our risk. We can put little money into it, but if you're starting with $1 million piece of property, odds are you're not going to be able to get away with wholesaling 100% pure no money, especially if you're brand new to it. And for that reason alone, if you're in $1 million price points, you definitely have to consider going virtual. Now, another problem people have is sometimes a con is their market is too small. There's just not enough sellers. There's not enough buyers. And for that reason, you are forced to go virtually. And that's the quick pros and cons of doing it local. So let's talk about virtual. Rick, it's got to be better, right? Well, let's talk about it. Let's talk with the positive. Okay, let's talk with the pros. Number one, my favorite part is you can quickly and easily move in and out of a market at free will with no obligation or do anything like that. So I look at virtual marketing kind of like you look at how people gold mine. If they got a new plot of land, instead of digging the whole land up and spending millions of dollars, they'll spend a few $100s and they will drill test pilot holes. How do you do that? You do test marketing. Instead of doing 5,000 pieces, maybe you just do 500 pieces and get a lay of the land and see verify the average price points, sellers' motivations, and you can look at the response rate and you can decide if you want to stay in that virtual market or hop to another one. That is a great benefit of doing virtual. Number two, you get to pick your average price points. So if you want to be in a market with $150,000 and under average median price, you get to go find it. You find the data and you get to pick it. Remember, when you do your local market, you don't get the option to pick that data. It's critically important. Obviously, you're going to pick a market that hopefully is less competitive and less saturated, but I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of that is what you believe in your head. And sometimes the truth is what you see it today is not based on the real facts. So don't weigh everything on what you think a competitive market is unless you have data to support it, because remember, it's just your opinion. Every market has competition. You're never going to have a market that doesn't have competition. That's a unicorn, and it doesn't exist. The other pro of doing virtual markets is you can data stuff to death. And what do I mean by that? You can go into listrei.com, our PropStream account, get a free trial version there, and you can look at data points, the average, how many cash transactions are done, What's the average sales price on that? How long do these properties take to sell? How long are they owning them for? What zip codes are hot and what zip codes are not? Guys, data will always guide you to the truth. So I like to do data, but data has one pullback, is sometimes the information is dated. So if you want to research a market to death, you have that advantage in virtual over doing a local market. Last but not least, this gives you the freedom to work completely virtually, meaning if you want to stay in LA and work anywhere in the world, once you figure out how to do virtual, you never feel like you're held hostage to a market again. This is a process you have to go through. And once people figure that out, they love wholesaling because they can do any market they want. So let's run through the cons of doing virtual wholesaling. So first and foremost is you don't get the belly-to-belly meetings. There's no physical meetings, and you are going to make significantly less on your deals, especially in the very beginning. It is what it is. Everything you're doing is by phone work, DocuSign. Yes, you can hire boots on the ground to help you get through it. That's got its challenges and own, and it's going to take time and money to fix that part of it. Number two, which is a big one, which is the fight against local market, is you just don't know the local market. You think you know it, but I promise you don't know it, and you're going to have to go through a lot of suffered deals to figure it out. The average cancellation on wholesaling virtually is around 40 to 45%, meaning every contract you enter, 45% of them fail. Why? Number one, you usually get the price points wrong, especially in the beginning. Number two, you can't find the right buyer, and you have to cancel out the deal. As opposed to doing it locally, you usually have like a 10 or 15% cancellation rate, and it's usually due to an issue from the seller and nothing else. So that's some of the risks of doing it virtual. Here's another known fact. If you're going into a new virtual wholesale market, you are going to have to work with other wholesalers. Now, most of you go, hey, that's a benefit, isn't it, Rick? I'm here to tell you, most wholesalers, the honest truth is they don't work well with others, especially with newbies. So if you're a newbie going into a virtual market and you're going to pair up with a local wholesaler to help you sell your property, be wary because they will take advantage of you. I'm not saying every one of them, but a lot of wholesalers look at everybody else's competition and they got to run you over. And for that reason is one of the drawbacks of doing the virtual market. Just pairing up a local wholesaler is not going to fix all your deal flow problems. So the next one, obviously, I'm getting inspections and pictures on virtual properties. It's a pain in the butt. Like, you're not there to do it. So you got to rely on like a realtor, a property manager, or someone you can trust to go out and do it. I love virtual if you've lived in that town before and you got friends and family and connection. Much, much easier transition than doing it completely from raw. Last but not least, you got to understand it takes 3 to 6 months just to get efficient and profitable when you do a virtual market. And that's what most gurus will not tell you. You have to learn the market. You've got to find cash buyers, and you've got to figure out your marketing. And those are the challenges. It takes time. But the good news is once you figure it out, you most likely will not leave that market, because once you dial it in, that is one of your new pseudo home markets. And every month you're doing business there, you'll get more and more connections. You'll get better at it, and your profits will go up. And then you can go add another virtual market. So I've explained the pros and cons of both doing local and virtual. And here's what I'm going to tell you. What I do, what me and Zach do in our business, we dominate our local market. Like, we have a lot of saturation in our market. I've been a South Florida guy for my entire life, so I know it. I love it. And nobody knows this market better than me and Zach. And so we're always going to do the local market. Now, if you're just starting out and you're in a major area like LA, New York City, don't abandon your local market. Always do it, because when you do that one deal, it's going to be a monster and you're going to nail it. And every one you do is going to give you more confidence. The problem is it's not going to be enough to sustain and fulfill you full time to do wholesaling. So what me and Zach do is we go out and find virtual markets. One of the easiest hacks to find a virtual market is just reverse engineer what other wholesalers do. Unfortunately, a lot of wholesalers leave their ego in the game and they brag about all the deals they do. Just go on social media. It's easy to find. Get on their cash buyers list. Reverse engineer what zip codes are having success in, and you just go ahead and duplicate it. So it's up to you to pick the market, But if you can do a balance of always doing a local market, never ever leave it, and you will get more and more efficient. And then you add local markets, understanding it's going to take time and energy for you to get those dialed in, usually 3 to 6 months. If you guys understand that, you can do the best of both worlds, and that's what I recommend. Or if you like doing your local market and you have plenty of business, my recommendation is deep dive into it and go all the way in. You don't need another virtual market. Guys, you tell me, are you doing local? Are you doing virtual? Are you doing a combo of both? What do you think are the pros or cons? What have I missed out on it? Share them with me, guys. I love wholesaling. You get to pick how you do it, and it's up to you to decide if you want to do a combo or do them both. I do them both. I like to do it that way, but maybe you guys have some more competition in your market. Let me know in the comments what you think. And guys, I'll see you in the next video. Do me a favor, smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.